It's good. Thank you very much. That was it. 7 minutes. They applauded. It was over. You missed it. All right. Change is difficult because we like routine. That morning cup of coffee, the morning run, checking our iPhones before we get out of bed, right? Fear is an obstacle to change. Fear of the unknown, the new, of breaking that script. And when we read about change, it can be overwhelming. Take, for example, Tacoma, Washington. The school district solved their homelessness problem in order to help their students. Or you read about a teacher in the Bronx, New York, who quit her job to start a whole foundation to help her students. Well, this is my story of change. I used to joke that I taught for 11 years in public school in 5 different jobs. You're doing the math. Yep, I did not hold tenure. But now that I'm in a single job for the last 7 years, I have some perspective on that time. I was the change that schools didn't like. So when I ran up against the wall, I just changed jobs. Take, for example, year 3 teaching middle school. My students are working in groups, working on tasks, sharing ideas. And at the end of the year, the principal says to me, "Your test scores aren't high enough. Teach like the teacher down the hall. More skills. Put the kids in rows." But how did that explain one of my students, Pyle, who one day in my class was trying to figure out Farmer Ben and his cows and ducks. She had the right number of legs, but the wrong number of animals. She looks up at me, big brown eyes, oversized glasses, and she goes, "I'm just going to cut a cow in half and make 2 ducks." Genius. So of course now, next year, I'm teaching in a new school district, new job, AP Calculus, same story. My students are at the board solving problems. I'm standing in the back of the classroom asking questions. 3 weeks into the job, my supervisor says, "You don't teach." I'm like, I thought I was supposed to guide their thinking, support their reasoning. So what if I do it from the back of the classroom? They're taking the AP exam. They have to do the questions, not me. What's the big deal? What's going on? See, sometimes when people put up walls to prevent change, they actually hide change that's going on. In my next job, a student comes up to me and says, "Hey, you're in a book." I'm like, "No way." But it turns out a student of mine had their college application essay published, and in it they described how they thrived in that AP Calculus class where I was told I didn't teach. You see, it's not about administrators and test scores. My point is, it's about our students. So at this point, I got tired of fighting administrators. I did the only thing I could possibly do. I became an administrator. But now, I faced new walls, teachers who did not want to change. On one of my 3 jobs as a supervisor, I spent 2 years documenting a teacher's resistance to change just to try and make a crack in that wall. Now, I'm a teacher educator. I'm trying to change the teaching in the next generation. But I find myself on the other side of the same walls. Because I get these mentor teachers who say things like this to my student teachers. "That's enough with the group work. It's time to lecture. Those are low-level students. They can't problem solve, so just give them some worksheets." So where is this change? I walk down the halls of high schools and middle schools by me, and kids are still in rows, and teachers are doing the math at the board. You see, so I'm here to ask you to be an agent of change, because my pre-service teachers can't do it alone. There will always be walls in their way. When you are awesome in your classroom and only in your classroom, you create inequity in the students in your school and the next generation. You need to tell your story. You need to share the change that you are trying to make. When your colleagues are using ineffective practices that we know don't work from the research, but you're on the other side using practices that do work, right? We create this achievement gap in our students. There will always be walls in their way. So we need to advocate for change. And it needs to start with us personally. Am I changing? Am I a lifelong learner? We need to tell our students why their classroom is changing. My students used to always say, why are you making us do problems at the board? And I'd say, listen, if you're going to be a leader someday, you're going to have to convince somebody of something. So convince me you can solve this math problem, and you'll have the skills that you need in your future. Your colleagues cannot work in isolation. You cannot let them use ineffective practices. When they're at professional development and they're checking their email or shopping online, we all know it happens, right? It's their students who lose. So you can't let that happen. All students deserve highly effective teachers. All students deserve to be in classrooms full of rich tasks and discussion. Parents. Lots of fun, right? Oh, actually, administrators first, I guess. They need to see the change. When they come running into your classroom because two kids are yelling and screaming about how many pizza toppings to make, this actually happened, you just look at them and go, what? They're being mathematicians. I don't see the problem. Now on to parents. They need to understand that you cannot teach them the way that they learned it because we're preparing them for jobs that don't exist, or better yet, ones that they create themselves. Everyone needs to understand the change. Because we need to get rid of the phrase, I am bad at math. Because we know that if we have the right mindset, everyone can learn. Agents of change are disruptive. But we have known for over 20 years how kids should experience mathematics in research and in standards. Yet their implementation is the exception to the rule. And it's now time that the exception becomes the rule. So be an agent of change. It is not an easy path, but it is the right path for our students' success. I am still on my journey of change, and this time I'm sticking around until I break down those walls. So will you join me? Thank you.